Hello, yellers! Welcome to Why Am I Yelling? Musings from a middle-aged menopausal mom. I'm Krista Rizzo, your host, and today we are talking about group texts, hot flashes, and other sacred rituals, the life-saving power of female friendships. But first, you might be thinking, Rizzo, why are you in that getup? Ta-da! Let me just do this first. These have to go away so I can actually see what I'm doing. These have to come on. Now I'm here. Fix this. All set. Okay. So here's the deal. I actually just finished filming a video for a friend's upcoming 50th birthday with my girlfriends who gave me this beautiful crown for my 50th birthday 2 years ago. And we were in our boat in my driveway. So let me set the stage. Our boat has not been put in the lake yet. It's going in the next couple of days. And so it's just sitting in my driveway waiting to be transported to the lake that is just down the street from our house. And my girlfriends and I decided for our friend's 50th birthday, we were going to rewrite the words, the lyrics to the Gilligan's Island theme. Just sit right back. You know that one. Anyway, and we wrote it based on their personality traits and life experiences with a little help from ChatGPT, not gonna lie. So here we are. There's 4 of us, me and 3 of my girlfriends, in costume. This is my costume. I am Mrs. Thurston C. Howell III, Lovey, as she is affectionately called on the TV show, Gilligan's Island. And we are in the boat, in my driveway, sweating our asses off because it's a million gazillion degrees outside. And after our 10th take, we were like, fuck it, it's good enough. And the entire time we were cracking up. Like we had such it was like an hour and a half, but it was such a fun hour and a half that we pulled it together and got it done that now I'm sitting here afterwards and I'm thinking about, how vital these friendships are in my life. I'm thinking about the friendships that I have with the other women in my life. And I think it's really important to talk about these friendships and show you guys the really fun things and funny things that we do. Because that's what life is all about, right? It's about outside of all the hard stuff that we have to deal with every single day, just by virtue of living in this world that we live in, to be able to lean back and lean on and have a group of friends that you can laugh with and cry with and lift each other up with is a really special thing. And I hope that you all have that. And if you don't, we have to figure out how to get it for you. And so I often think about relationships because a few years ago I wrote a book about relationships as a life coach. And somebody who values my relationships above anything else. And the book that I wrote is not just about one particular relationship. It's about all of the relationships that we have in our lives and why they're so important. And there is a specific part of the book that talks about your friendships. And it's one of my favorite parts. And I often think about my friendships because my friendships actually span my entire lifetime. I have friends who I have known since I was a really little kid, and they're still friends in my life. And I often think about how I was introduced to the value of friendship, and I give all of the kudos and the props to my grandparents and my parents as my role models. My mom and dad grew up in the Bronx in New York, and my mom grew up in a 3-family house, and in that house lived other members of her family. It wasn't renters or anything. It was like their family house. And it was a cousin and her son living on the bottom floor. And then on the main floor, my aunt and uncle and their 3 kids. And then the top floor was my grandma and my pop-pop and their 3 kids, one of whom was my mother. And that house, when they were growing up, was a constant flurry of activity, right? There were people coming and going and in and out and all the things. And there was always something to celebrate. A birthday, an anniversary, a holiday, a whatever. And so they were constantly together, not just with themselves and their families, but with friends that were coming and going. And, my mom grew up in this house, and 3 blocks away, my dad grew up in this apartment complex in this building with a bunch of my mom's cousins. So they all kind of grew up in this group, I guess, and knew each other from when they were little kids and teenagers. And my mom started dating my dad, and then they got married and all the things. And they continued to grow these friendships. But my parents were inspired by my grandparents. And I can remember as a little girl going to my grandparents' house on Sundays for Sunday dinner or whatever it is that we were going to celebrate or how we were going to, go see them. And we typically saw my grandparents once a week. And my grandmother and grandfather belonged to a club. They called it the Hope Club. And it was created during World War II, I think it was. And it was all the women. My grandfather was in the war. And, all the women that were in this club called the Hope Club, they were the wives of the soldiers who were deployed overseas fighting. And when they all came back, they continued this club. And the club grew to nights out for dinners, and they celebrated each other's weddings and children, and they played cards together. And it was just something that continued, for my parents to see and for them to pass on to us. And so when I was growing up in my house, there was always activity. And it was my parents and me and my brother. We didn't have a very large family, just the 4 of us, but we had a fairly large extended family. But we had a very big network of friends. And when my parents got married, they moved from the Bronx to Westchester, where I grew up for part of my life. And they just happened to buy a house on a street that had a lot of young families with children on it. And we had the pleasure and privilege of growing up with friends, like literally knocking on each other's doors, walking into each other's houses, making ourselves at home until I was, 13. And then we moved, to Florida. And even there, like, we had continued to cultivate these friendships. My parents bought property in Florida with their best friends, and they moved down right around the same time. And they had Friday night dinners with these people pretty much every Friday for 40 years or so. Maybe more. I don't even know. From the early 70s until the mid 2000 teens, right? My dad passed away in 2017. So anyway, friendship and those relationships were very, very important, and they were instilled in us, the importance. And for somebody like me, I am a relationship lover, right? I love my friends. I love my family. I love my husband. I love my dog. Like, it's really important for me to have solid, valuable relationships. And it's always kind of mind-boggling to me when people don't have those things, and they don't have one person, let alone a network to lean on. And so I like to talk about it because I think it's important for us to acknowledge these friendships and respect them and give them the props that they're due. Because for a lot of us, we wouldn't be literally alive if we didn't have our friends. And so in this week's Are You Kidding Me?, we're talking about at this stage of life when we are juggling our careers and our kids and our aging parents and, the hormonal roller coaster that is this menopause thing that we're going through. Female friendships are not just important, they are essential. And we need to talk more about the power of these deep ride or die relationships. I like to call them ride or die relationships because they hold us up and they make us laugh until we cry, or they help us when we're crying, right? And they help us to not lose our minds. And so in the midst of this midlife era that we're in, and I do say this sometimes that I'm on the downslide, right? I'm past 50, so every day is a gift at this point. But in the midst of all this midlife chaos, let's talk about why these friendships are our secret superpower and what makes them so critical, especially right now. Like, we are living in this world that is crazy and stressful and all the things. And so I do this all the time. Think about a time when you leaned on your friends that so heavily because you knew that you wouldn't have made it through without them. I honestly can tell you that I have friends still that I am in contact with, that I'm still friends with, not in a Facebook kind of way, that I am still friends with, that I could call on the phone and have a conversation about our families, about our futures, about, I know their kids' names, I know that kind of stuff. My oldest friend is probably, other than a family member, from when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. And I still have that friend in my life. We might not live close to each other anymore, but we definitely check in with each other. And we follow each other's lives, and I'm still close to her mom. And it's really special to have that friendship. And then from there, I have had friendships that have, grown and continued. My best friend, Amy, who I'm sure you will hear me talk about a lot during this podcast as this grows and continues, has been my best friend since 9th grade. We were both from the same area in Westchester in New York. She was from White Plains. I was from a town called Thornwood. And we never knew each other in New York, even though my grandmother, I think, shopped at her dad's fish market in White Plains, but that was a whole different story. But we met in high school because we both moved to Florida when we were young teenagers, early teens. And we hit it off. We became friends. We were both in Florida against our wishes, right? We didn't want to be there. We were at this very vulnerable age of tween teenagerhood, and we kind of had to figure out how to make it go. And I had already lived there for, I think, 2 years before I met her. And I had like a group of friends. And so we kind of took her into the fold, and she and I have been tight friends. She is like my sister. If I had a sister, I would pick Amy. Tight friends since 1986. So it'll be 40 years next year. I can't even, those words that are coming out of my mouth right now the math does not math in my brain. She is my ride or die for sure. When my mom actually did pass away during the pandemic in January 2021, I had to go to Florida. And I went there by myself because it was pre-vaccine and it was just crazy. And I went down there on a one-way ticket and ended up taking my mom's car and filling it with stuff that I wanted to keep and driving it back up north. And she dropped everything and got in the car and came with me for 2 days and drove back up north with me. And it was in February. There was a blizzard. We got stuck in Washington, D.C. for 2 nights because of the weather. And it was the best couple of days that I had, because I had just come from my mom's funeral and all that stuff. But, her, selflessness and generosity in, figuring out a way to make that happen, to be with me, was really... you can't repay that kind of friendship, right? We just continue to do things for each other. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like the friends who, would drop anything for you. And it doesn't have to be a lot, right? You could have 1 or 2 of them. I'm pretty fortunate. I feel like I have a good handful of those people in my life who, if I called right now and said, hey, I really need you to be here, they would be here. Whether it is, for picking up a child or, dog sitting or running to the store or holding me up when I'm having a hard day. And I like to think that I am that person for these people as well. And so when I'm thinking about these relationships, I'm often thinking about times where, we have acknowledged these friendships in our lives with our friends as a group. And the first thing that pops into my head is COVID, then the pandemic. We live in, so my very brief COVID story is, we lived in New York City and Brooklyn when the pandemic happened, and we have had a house in Connecticut for many years. And when the pandemic hit, we decided, let's not stay in Brooklyn, where we have a 2.5 bedroom apartment with 4 people, and we're going to be working from home and schooling from home and all the things. Let's, for a couple of weeks, head to Connecticut, where we have bedrooms and space and a yard and a deck and a trampoline and all the things for the kids, where we can all breathe and not be on top of each other. And that was only supposed to be for a couple weeks, and it's 5 years later. We're still here, right? So that life shift required my friends, for sure, to help me get through. But I can remember the early days of the pandemic, we were at our house in Connecticut, and we have friends here, obviously, and we have other New York friends who came up to their weekend house. This sounds very bougie and first worldy. Sorry, but to their houses, and we kind of created this bubble. And that bubble saw us through almost 2 years of pandemic, right? It was, us communicating with each other every single day. It was us getting our kids together safely. It was us, where we live. We live in a super rural area in the Northwest Hills of Connecticut, but there's not a lot of people here. And so that was great for us because we could be outside and we could be around each other. And then, as the days went on and got longer, we knew that we were the only people that were around each other. So we were like quarantined together, and we created this bubble. And I can remember that probably 18 months into this bubble, one of my friends who I was just filming with today had a party at her parents' house because they were going away. And it was like we were teenagers again. Like we called it like a back to the 80s or 90s theme or whatever. And we all got dressed up, and costumes seemed to be a thing for us. But we all got dressed up and crimped our hair and made it big, and put on our leg warmers and whatever else we wore. And I can remember one of my friends during the night kind of toasting our friendship, and she said, "You guys, I just want you to know that I would not have made it through these last 18 months without you. There's no way I would have been able to survive the homeschooling and the transfer of, because a lot of us transferred up to Connecticut for our kids to go to school. If it wasn't just for a year, it was, we are here forever, but we had friends who did it for a year or a year and a half, because our schools here were going in person. But she said, she was like, I really value the friendships that are in this room. And there were probably 20 of us in the room. And, we had just experienced this phenomenon of a global pandemic, and we were still, on the tail end. We were coming out of it at that point. But, we had gone through this historic moment together, and we had supported each other, and we had, had deep conversations about our lives, and there were job pivots that happened, and there were relationship issues along the way. And, when you have that bond with other women that that you can lean on, it is life-changing for a number of reasons. And the gratitude that you have for these people is overwhelming and immeasurable, quite frankly. And I think that for a lot of us, we should understand it better. And now we're in this season of life, like this hot flash. I'm wearing my caftan, as Lovey does. We're in this season of life where we have a better understanding and a better appreciation for it, right? Because we have more experience. We are wiser. We are going through this physical thing that is, menopause and midlife, and we are confronting a lot of different things right now, right? You're confronting aging parents, and we're confronting our own health, and we're confronting our children leaving and becoming empty nesters, all while our bodies are doing these crazy haywire things, and we're trying to figure out how that all comes together and works too. And so I have a couple of reasons why friendships are important, and the list can go on, but I kind of want to just highlight these couple, right? So having a group of friends or one person is like a built-in hype squad, and they are a total reality check for you. If you don't have friends who can't call you out on things, then that's not really a true friendship. And I'm not saying you need to duke it out like they do on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but I am saying that you should be able to say, hey, that I don't agree with that, and here's why, or that could be this, or even check yourself and be like, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do that, and here's why. Not, be able to give a genuine apology, right? Your friends are gonna lift you up when you are, not feeling great, when you are, wearing the sweatpants for the third day in a row while you're walking the dog and they don't even care. They're gonna tell you when you have food in your teeth. They're gonna, magnify you with, all the glory, but they're also going to be able to like check your presence. And I think that's a really important thing. So to have that hype squad or that support is really important. They are definitely mood managers, and I think this is important. I have several group text chains with different moms. Some of them are on multiple chains. But I have one for my book club right now that is just hilarious. And I look to that text chain, and it is active. It is active, active, active. Like, we are constantly in there with funny stuff, aggravating stuff, kid stuff, life stuff, whatever. And these people are a total mood stabilizer for me. When you are in a chat room or a chat group or whatever you're in that is full of, funny memes or, people who are, telling you the actual truth about, oh my God, I just, I peed a little when I was laughing about this, right? Like, come on, you guys, like, this is real life and we are talking about it. And that allows us to really just feel like, whew, I know that I am not in this alone. I know that I am in this with this group of ladies who I always look so forward to seeing and hearing from and spending time with, that I consider myself super, super lucky. But I know that, they will be here in a snap and I will be there for them in a snap. And that leads me to the next one is, this friend group or your friend group should be your life raft in the middle of your midlife storm. And when I talk about midlife storms, I'm talking about all the things, right? We are different every single day. And, you're not the same person you were yesterday. You're certainly not the same person you were 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. And change is something that is a constant. You can rely on it every single day, whether it is super small, like a changing of a schedule situation or a cancellation of a lunch, or something really big, like a job change or a health crisis or any one of those things, right? When you have a life raft of that is your friends, right? They are your anchor and your compass, and they are your ride or dies. And that's not to discount any other relationship you have with a parent, with a spouse, with a life partner, with a kid. It's just different when it's your friends. And you know what I'm talking about, right? Think about your friend group and think about the people that are in it and how they are individually unique and special, and together it's like the best thing on the planet, right? The laughter and the support and the tears, and we have all been through stuff, right? We've all experienced that with each other, and yet we still keep coming back. We keep coming back for more because there is a genuine, true love there and a respect, and I can't explain it. And that's why I think friendship relationships are so important. It's because these people, they see you. They have seen you at your worst and your best. They have seen you, cheering, yelling, and crying, yelling, and angry yelling, and they still come back for more, right? And so make sure that you have those people in your life to continue to do those things with and to lean on and to love, because they are the people that you absolutely need when it comes to all of the things that you need in your life. I often say that I'm very lucky when it comes to the friends that I have in my life. And I recognize that that is just a wonderful, wonderful thing for me and for, anybody I talk to when we talk about friendships and that specific relationship of a friendship. Because, for that experience, it's one of a kind. And I think that is a really special thing, and it's a really wonderful, exciting time in your life. And if you're menopausal like I am, and you're midlife, and you're, going through something, leaning on your friends and knowing that you have that cushion is really, really wonderful. And so this episode is for my girlfriends. You know who you are. because I love you and I appreciate you, and I can't wait. We've done some really fun, wonderful things together, but I can't wait to do more of that. And I think that we should continue to grow and celebrate and enjoy our friends while we have these relationships. And, those again will shift too. But I think it's important to recognize that and grow with that as well. That's my this week's yell, and that's my why. That's my why am I yelling for this week. Hot flash moment of the week literally is this. It is sitting and doing funny things with your friends, right? Creating memories that are gonna make you laugh 5 years from now when you all of a sudden are reminded, you hear the Gilligan's Island theme song and you're reminded of that crazy shit that you did with your 4 friends or your 3 friends, and the 4 of you got in your boat in the driveway to film a video for another friend who you love so much's birthday. I think it's really a fun thing to do and a really wonderful thing to do. I am yelling out to my friends this week. I love you guys. This week, what's dinner? Tonight, dinner is literally nothing because I'm not going to be here. I'm actually going to my book club friend group this evening. But we are coming up on a holiday, so it is big barbecue time in our world. It's summer, and it's big barbecue time, and so my kids always love a good burger. I like to make homemade fries, so I'll get any kind of potato and just wedge them up and load it up with all kinds of seasoning. They love a tahini seasoned French fry. They love a sea salt French fry. They like an everything bagel French fry, everything bagel, whatever. Why can't I think of the word? Because I am menopausal and I am forgetting the word. Seasoning. There's the word. French fries. So usually it's, fries and burgers and hot dogs and salads and all kinds of really great things. But that is what's dinner, because food is my love language. That's it for this week's episode of Why Am I Yelling? Musings from a middle-aged menopausal mom. I am Krista Rizzo. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to send us your thoughts, your questions, your comments, your hot flash moments, your are you kidding me moments, and listen and subscribe. You can get this anywhere you get a podcast. I just recently uploaded it, so it's on Apple and Spotify and iHeart and all the other places. So, and obviously you can watch this. You can watch this crown and this face on YouTube at Why Am I Yelling Pod. So don't forget to do that. And send us your DMs and your comments and your questions, because we're just getting started. And I'm so excited. I'm so glad that you're here. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. I love you, and we'll see you soon. Mwah. Bye.